Betsy is considered an expert in guiding managers, community association boards, and handling the day-to-day operations of their communities, and at the same time dealing with different communication styles, difficult personalities, and conflict. Betsy is the author of Boardmanship, The Right Person and the Right Place with the Right Skills, and How to Hire a Manager. And her monthly articles can be seen in the Florida Community Association Journal, a magazine that supports all aspects of community association management. She was also appointed by Governor Rick Scott in 2013 to serve on the Florida Regulatory Council for Community Association Managers, and she also serves as an expert witness. She's involved in lots of different organizations, which you can see in her in the program. She asked me to cut it a little bit short on the intro, so I'll cut the intro, and please welcome Betsy Barbieux.
Thank you. I'm going to stand down here if that's okay, and I do not have charts with all these figures on them. Will that be okay? Okay. We're going to talk about people. Are people funny? Are some people scary? Yeah. Some people weird? Yes. Tracy told me that if I brought candy, that you would probably play with me. So you get prizes, and I don't throw well, so I may have to run around. Tell me some things about difficult people. Give me a difficult person type. Difficult people are, wait, what? Arrogant. Okay, I broke my shoulder, so I'm doing underhanded. Oh, almost got it. Okay, you were smart. Okay. Difficult people are emotional. I can hand that to you. Emotional. Self-centered. Oh, God, dog. Difficult people are everywhere. Oh, yeah. Everywhere. Difficult people are angry back here? Well, you're pointing. He's angry? Oh, he's not angry. Oh, okay. Oh, God. Wait a minute. Let's make sure you're not angry. Yeah, I think maybe he was angry. Okay, a couple more. Difficult people are inflexible. All right. Difficult people are, boy, we're going to get that one real good first thing. Okay, let me see if I can do it. Not bad. I didn't knock over the Coke. Difficult people are, come on, somebody over here. Misunderstood. Oh, that is so awesome. Okay. Misunderstood. I tell my wife all the time. One of the things, too, that Paul said at the beginning is that the job of us as managers and as bankers, and the job of us as parents and spouses and just friends, is to listen to people and understand them. And we misunderstand. And I think that first what I want to do before we talk about misunderstanding people and trying to get a handle on how to understand them, I want to eliminate two categories of people. And some you've sort of already said. Let's see what we've got here. First, there's the VDP. They're on medication and need therapy. And the managers around the state that I talk to say that they are probably about 5% in each community, but they probably represent 90% of your time. You know, they're VDPs, very draining people, and they just take a lot of time out of you. And one of the things about them that I have found is that the VDPs, and I'll just give you a quick little hint on what to do with these, they're not usually dangerous. Would that be right? They're just draining. They come and sit in your office. And you're looking at your watch. He's looking at his watch. He's got his stuff all packed up. He's heading out the door. They're behind him. He's turned off the light. He's out of the car. They're behind him. VDPs are people who do not have social skills, so they don't pick up on social cues. You follow me? So they don't know that when you keep doing that. I mean, normally the rest of us would go, oh, I'm sorry, you have someplace to go. I'll leave, right? I mean, normally that's what you would do. But they don't pick up on social cues. So they don't see that you're busy. They don't see that you're interrupted. They don't see that your desk is piled this high. so they don't pick up on the social cues. Remember the kids who used to come, well, and maybe some of them still do, the kids that used to come over and play in the yard with your kids, and then it was dinner time? And then it was dinner time? Do you still have that? Or maybe it's grandkids, but it's dinner time. And what did you say to them? Go home. Go home. Your mother's calling. Go home. Go home. We just told them to go home. Did it offend them? No. Did they come back the next day? Yeah. Okay. Right? I mean, they came back. They don't have the social skills, so they don't pick up on the social cues. Well, that 60-year-old sitting in your office is one of those little kids. And so you just tell them to go home. You won't hurt their feelings. You can get up. You could even, can I touch you? Yes. Okay. You could even take, what's your name? Barry. Okay, you could take him even by the arm. Come on, Barry. We're going to, I tell you what, I'm going to make a date with you, and we're going to have coffee at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, okay? But don't you come back before then.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Barry. So, you just escort them out, make a date with them, and tell them not to come back. But then you've got to set a boundary. You can't let them come back and infringe on that time. So the VDPs are, they're not usually the dangerous ones. They're not usually the ones you are calling 911 on or having somebody else in your office when they're there because you're a little bit scared of them. But they do take up your time, and you don't have to really worry about hurting their feelings, because they're just like the neighborhood kids. Just tell them to go home. Go home. The other kinds, and I have a whole class on this. I have a whole continuing ed class about bullies in a hostile work environment. Now, these are the dangerous ones, and these are the ones that scare you. These are the ones that don't take no. I think she said back here, they don't take no for an answer, and they really don't take no for an answer. And there are a couple of characteristics about these. First of all, we need to define hostile work environment. And when I talk to attorneys, employment practices attorneys, when I talk to them, I've asked them, you know, Florida has like the highest rate of lawsuits for wrongful termination and whatever in the country is what I'm told. But what I've asked them, I said, can you identify, do you know if any of these lawsuits come from community associations? Can you tell what industries they come from? Do you know what I mean when I say community associations? And the ones who have understood what I've said say no, they don't. And you know what I think happens? I think managers in our industry in Florida, we just leave. We endure hostile work environments every day. And the main hostile work environment person that causes it is what your employment practices liability insurance calls a third-party harasser. And you know who a third-party harasser is? A resident. A resident is considered a third-party harasser. And in your insurance package, and for the associations probably have an employment practices liability policy in there. And it requires you to have a manual, it requires you to have all these other things that most communities don't have, and it requires you to have some grievance policies in there, and for you to understand the definition of a third-party harasser could be a resident. And boards cannot let managers and staff continue to be yelled and screamed at. The lawsuits are coming, and that's what I'm trying to warn about in our bullies class, is that the lawsuits are coming here in Florida. I don't know about the rest of the country. I've talked to, where's Gus from Pennsylvania and some other places. I don't know what's going on in your states, but I think our managers here walk away. But I think as our managers get younger and the demographics of our managers change, that the younger ones know about suing. The rest of us have grown up with, well, it's just part of the job. And if it gets bad enough, we just leave. Just warning you, don't let those board members get by with not dealing with the residents who, and other board members, who are giving your staff, your management staff, a hard time. Lawsuits are coming. They're not here yet, but they're coming. So that's all the bad news. Now that's all the not good stuff that we're going to talk about. Let's see if I have one more thing here. Oh, I do have some factors here about the hostile work environment, how frequent it is, how severe it is, physically threatening, if it interferes with your job. And the solution is let me see what I've had here. Okay, go back. We'll skip that. The main thing about a hostile work environment, here's the criteria. I'm afraid to go to work today. I dread going to work today. That's all it takes to create a hostile work environment. So let's move on from there. What I usually tell boards, if I'm giving them part of this presentation, is that sometimes they don't relate the fact that they are corporate America and they have to follow the same kind of rules that the rest of corporate America does. And to prove to them that they're actually in corporate America, I have them do this little computation up here. You take the value of a home or a unit, multiply that times the number of homes or units you have, add to that your budget, add to that your reserves, add to that your value of your common property, and you have something with a whole bunch of zeros after it, don't you? So it amazes me that board members who are otherwise businessmen and women, intelligent, and would never operate their business the way they do their community. They come to the community and go to the board table and look at their finances and do whatever as if they're managing the little can of money that you pass around in Sunday school to put your change in. They are managing a lot of money which they give to you, and then we have professionals like our banks here that help us with that. Do you like that calculation? You can scare the bejeebies out of your board members with that. And that's what I like to do, because I like to get them real somber. It's like, oh, wow, okay. What I want to talk about is kind of what Paul said earlier, is that we need to understand people, and some of what happens is we misunderstand them. So I just want to talk about ordinary people. And one of the best places to find ordinary people is just think about your family. We can look at this from different perspectives. We can look at it as your family members. We can look at it as your coworkers, your spouse, just the friends that you have, and you probably will begin to see some of the people that you know in some of these descriptions. What's harder to see is yourself. But if you're sitting next to anybody who knows you, all you have to do is do this. Right? So y'all can tell on each other. Yeah. That's you. Do y'all know each other? Okay, all right. So I'll pick on y'all too. And I have prizes at the end. Don't let me forget, I have prizes at the end. So you pay attention, because you have to answer a question, okay? Do you have somebody in your family that just cannot belong to this gene pool? Do you ever, I mean, you love them, but it's kind of like, where did they come from? They're not like the rest of us at all. Oh, you're turning around looking at somebody. Oh, oh, okay. It's kind of like the rest of the family over here is okay, but then there's the one odd one. And we just know he or she is just kind of odd. So we're going to be talking about maybe how to understand that, how to understand your coworkers. I like talking with managers about this because you're dealing with a whole group of odd people on your boards. And I think that we all would agree, we somewhere know that we are not all the same. I mean, we know we're not all the same. But we treat everybody as if we are. Because we treat everybody as if you should understand things the way I'm understanding them. Except that somewhere we know that probably can't be true. But we don't know what else to do. So if we can figure out something else to do and a different way to approach them so that we can have that understanding that's a little bit better and maybe not be so misunderstood, that we might actually get along a little bit better in our daily lives. And some of you may have seen some of this before. Anybody done Myers-Briggs or the DISC or something? Yeah, this is going to be the DISC model that is real easy. We're talking about then your communication style, and what I mean by that is the way you prefer to give and receive information. Now, the way you have to do it sometimes is different than the way you prefer. Sometimes you have to work at a faster pace, make decisions faster. Sometimes you have to slow down, wait for everybody else. Sometimes you have to put on your people face and be real people-oriented for the day, and other days you're hunched over, crunching numbers, doing something. So you might prefer one of those more than another, but you have to do some of all of it. So you're going to have to do some of all of it. And by the way, there are assessments, self-assessments. They're real easy to do. Let me show you this. And when you do one, I've got them up here on the PowerPoint, but I think they're just as easy to see this way. You can tell. Can you tell from these? Can you see back there in the back? Are these the same? What can you observe about these? These are two people with two different or same? Different communication styles. Knowing no more than what you know, these people have two different communication styles. They will approach the use of time differently. They will approach the use of money differently. They will approach work differently. They will have different perspectives on parenting. They will have opposite perspectives on parenting. Do you know who this is? This is my son and his wife. And they did the profile before they got married. She knows this about him. I think he forgets. They are coming on 7 years of marriage, and all I can say is, bless her heart. Bless her heart. I don't know how she stuck with it that long. Now, what's very interesting is that these two actually are similar. What's high over here is high over here. These two are actually similar. They're not identical, but they're similar. This is my daughter-in-law, and this is me. Adam married his mother. My Adam did. He married his mother. That just gives me such delight. I can't tell you. It's like, yes, yes. He just thought he was getting away from me. She's more extreme than I am. So what we're talking about is your communication style. The way that I've got on the page 2, you have a handout? Does everybody have a handout? Do they have their handouts? You do, okay. So we're talking about your brain. Oh, is it inside your bag? Inside your bag. While you're looking for them, I've got the picture up here on the front. That's what it looks like. Got a little angry man throwing a computer on the front. Now, when we're talking about your communication style, what some people will say is they'll say, well, I've changed through the years. If I do these, they change. This one won't. Myers-Briggs, if you do Myers-Briggs, it will change. But it doesn't really change. Because what Myers-Briggs is doing is giving you one graph, and there's actually two. And what they're doing is putting them together. And when they put them together, they change. Because this graph over here is the way you were born. And do any of you have more than one child? Were they different, besides boy and girl, when you brought them home from the hospital? Yeah, they were. I mean, you could tell that they were wired differently from the very beginning. This is the way you were wired on this right side of the chart. This is the way you were wired. This, for the moment when my Adam took this, his self-assessment, this is the mode he was in at the time. So this one changes probably dozens of times a day, depending on who you're around. I mean, we might be talking to somebody and just like that, but then the dog comes in. Come on, and then the phone rings. We go, hello. We change our mode all the time with the way we communicate. So this one will change, I think, several times a day, probably several times before you get to work. Depends on if you drive with Amanda or not, and she's going through parking lots or whatever, you know. But this one is your preferred style. It's the way you were born. And basically, whatever your high points are here are going to continue to be your high points. And that means nothing to you yet, except they're just fun to look at because you can tell that they're different. If you think about my daughter-in-law, Chastity, just pray for her. So we're talking about your brain dominance. And so no, it doesn't change. Does the public part of you change? Yes. As your jobs have changed throughout the year, it requires you to work at a different pace or a different level or more people-oriented or more task-oriented or whatever. So those things change. Plus, we also become more mature and we become more wise, and we know that we should adapt and change. But you probably really didn't change your preference for your brain dominance. There are people who, and let me just show you, let's do this one. On the circle, see the circle in the middle of your page? The front part of the circle, which would be the top half of the circle, is actually the front part of your head. The bottom part of the circle is the back part of your head. So we've got the front brain and we've got the back brain. In years past, decades ago, that would have been your type A, type B. Do you remember hearing those? Some of you are old enough to remember the type A, the type B. The front part of the brain is the part of the brain that allows us to make decisions quickly. It's high risk. It tolerates a high risk. The front part of the brain does not need a lot of information to make a decision. The answer is yes, because yes means go forward. We're moving. We're not stopping. And the front part of the brain is always wanting to move forward and not stop. The back part of the brain is the part of the brain that goes, whoa, slow down. Now let's think about this. Who, what, when, where, why, how. And no matter what answer you give to the who, what, when, where, why, how, it generates another whole set of who, what, when, where, why, how. So the back part of the brain does not tolerate risk. She's talking to you, so you might better sit next to her, and because you're in trouble, I can tell. I can tell. You should see what I see. The back part of the brain says, I don't tolerate risk. I want it right the first time. I'm not going to do it over again. We're not making mistakes. So the back part of the brain is slower paced in its decision making. Not slow, but slower paced, because it thinks through a lot of who, what, when, where, why, how things. The front part of the brain kind of has the attitude of, well, if it's wrong, we'll just fix it later, which scares the heck out of the back part of the brain. Now, think of these as if they were two people. Let's put them in Amanda's car. Can we use your car? Let's put them in the car. We've got the fast-paced, high-risk person, front brain, who prefers to use the front part of their brain. We have them in the car with the slower-paced, low-risk person in the car. Amanda's driving. Okay, Amanda's driving. We've got the fast-paced, high-risk person driving. We're going back out here to International Drive, and we're heading toward the next traffic light that has been green a real long time. Oh, you got it. You want to do this? You got it. It's been green a long time, and the closer you get to it, what do? Faster you go, and when it turns yellow, what do? Go. Yeah, yellow means go faster. Yellow means go faster. And what's the person next to him doing? Slowing down, hanging on, bracing. I even had one gentleman who said that he had to replace the carpet on the passenger side because his wife was always digging her heel in to the carpet. Now, let's swap them and put them the other way. We'll put the slower-paced, low-risk person in the driver's seat and the fast-paced, high-risk person in the passenger seat. Now, mind you, in reality, that would never happen because the fast-paced person is not riding with them. The fast-paced person always drives. They are not going to ride with them. But let's just pretend. Going back out here to International Drive, approaching that traffic light that's been green a long time. Long time. Closer they get to the traffic light, what are they doing? Slowing down. When it turns yellow, what do? Stop on a perfectly good yellow light. And how many more could have made it through that light? I mean, people are all laying on the horn thinking, man, 3 more of us could have made it through that light. So now think about board meetings. And it doesn't matter whether it's a bank board meeting or a condo or an HOA board meeting. It doesn't matter what kind of bank meeting it is. Whoever is chairing that meeting, if they're fast-paced, if they're front-brained, it's going fast. And the others don't say anything. The one person just does it all. Is that right? I mean, it's pretty much whatever they say because there's no chance to say anything. There's no opportunity. Anybody have anything to say? Okay, good. We're moving on. That's, if you don't jump right in, that's it. But now the slower-paced, the low-risk person, if they're in charge of that board meeting, if they're the chair, what'd you say? It goes on and on and on. And they put the same things on the agenda for the next month and the next month. We just need to think about it a little more. We need one more bid. We need one more something, and it just goes on, and they don't pull the trigger and make a decision on anything. Would those two types of people, would they misunderstand each other? Yeah, I think they could, yeah. Now, would it be possible that they even might take that misunderstanding a step further and take it personally? You're doing that to me on purpose. I think sometimes we do. And now just think about the strange people that are on boards. They drank the Welcome to Florida orange juice when they crossed the state line. Those of you who are in Florida, that Welcome to Florida orange juice turns our homeowners into somebody different here in Florida. Anyway, I think that there's a possibility of misunderstanding. Not only are they fast-paced, high risk, and I'm slower-paced, low risk, but I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding of you're doing that to me on purpose. It's just you're just driving me nuts on purpose. And I don't know that that's the case. I think they are being true to their decision-making preference, and it's just different than yours. So let's take the other part of the circle and divide it in half the other way. And now we've got a left side and a right side. So here's our left side, and here's the right side. The left side of the brain gives us the ability to stay on task. It's the part of the brain that plans and creates and schedules and organizes and analyzes and checks and double checks and balances and makes, we're pointing here, are all 4 of you? Are you with them? No. Okay. What about you? Are you with them? Yeah, you're with them. No. Okay. All right. So we got Barry is moving over. So we have the left side of the brain keeps us organized and on task, and it plans and it thinks and it plans and it thinks and it plans and double checks and thinks. It works best at night. It plans in its sleep. It revisited the day, and it goes through all the work that it did for the day, and it catches its mistakes in its sleep. Does anybody do that? Anybody want to admit to do that? They catch their mistakes in their sleep of, dang it, I forgot to do that. So they start a list in the middle of the night in their head. Now, this is not a fitful, worrisome sleep. They just work in their sleep. And my unofficial survey says that left brain people, task people, sleep on their right side. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. They sleep on their right side, and it lets the left part of their brain work. And it's just working and working and working. If they sleep on their right side, there's all this other clamor stuff that happens, but this quiets down, and then they can work. And they go through the day that they just had and review it. They start making a list of when they get up in the morning, what they're going to do, and then they actually kind of start thinking about and planning their day. Now, they're asleep, but they're working. And they are planning their next day. They often will work it out in their head so that their schedule for the day, whether they're in the office or out and about, that they will do right-hand turns around town because they're playing a game with themselves. They're trying not to cross traffic. They're trying not to cross traffic. If they have to cross traffic, they lose points for the day. But if they can get everything done, and they like to do it in one trip, it's kind of like a game they play with themselves. If I can get all this done in one trip and not have to go back out and get it all on this side of the street and on that side of the street, or down the hall at the office this way and back up the hall this way, and they hand out stuff over here on their way down, and then on the way back it's this way. They're not going to just walk to the water fountain without doing something else. They're not going to walk to get coffee or the bathroom without doing something else. They're going to have all these little games that they play in their head of how they get all this stuff done, and then they give themselves points for the day. Now, that list they created, they did not have to write it down, but they probably did. They don't have to, but they probably did. Why? Mark it off, so they can mark it off. What do you do if you got more done in the day than you had on the list? More points, more points. You add it to the list and cross it off. By golly, I want credit for everything I've done. I want credit for everything I've done. Now, if they do have that list, they're sitting here with the list and they're looking at this list. Now, I want you to see this. They're looking at this list and they're going, I had a good day. And it's like, man, I had a good day. They do not take this list and show it to anybody because I could care less. I know I had a good day. It doesn't matter to me if you think I had one or not. I don't need external affirmation. This is totally internally driven. It's internal affirmation. I know I had a good day. I had a great day. Look how many points I got. I know I had a good day. So the drive is an internal drive. No one, that they weren't doing the list because someone said they should. It was their shoulds and oughts. This is what I should and ought do today. And that's how the list got created. Now, the downside of not having to write the list, I mean, they will write it for themselves, but the downside of that is that if you live or work with them, they were making a list for you too. And when you got to work or got up that morning, you already had a list of shoulds and oughts that you didn't know about. And you're already in trouble. I mean, you're already in trouble because you should have known that it's Tuesday and the trash goes out on Tuesday and you were supposed to put the garbage can in. You should have known. So whoever you live or work with, if you're one of these, please give them the benefit of a list because they really shouldn't get into trouble unless they knew that there was a list for them. But I think they get in trouble all the time. It's like, well, but the garbage has gone out on Tuesday for the last 15 years. Nevertheless, they probably need a list. But I think, you know, those of us who manage other people or work with other people, I think if you're task-oriented, I think that you're creating a list for them and they should and ought know. Now, the people-oriented, oh, no, let me tell you another thing about the task. Task-oriented people, let's see if I can spot any that are really, oh, look at that. That looks real left brain. Can you just hold that up, that notebook? Real high, real high. That way, no, other way, there you go. Can you see that? Okay, and okay, now put it back down right. It's not square. There you go. Okay. Task-oriented people very often are very peculiar about their desk, and they can tell if anyone has even taken a paper clip from their desk. They pretty much put things squarely on the table, so everything has to be lined up. And we have to be balanced. So we've got things balanced. Like this. Oh yeah, and don't move anything. And the thing is when they get loaded up and ready to leave for the afternoon, when they walk out, they look back because it's got to look right. Now I can leave because it's got to look right, and by golly, they can tell if anyone touched anything. Had a manager from Bunnell in my class last week. And we were going over some of this, and he pulled up on his phone. He had a video camera on his desk because people like messing with him and they like coming in and moving stuff. And he said, I've got a camera right here on my desk. It's showing my desk. I can make sure that no one's messing with my desk on his phone. I thought, okay, that's a little weird, but apparently people at work mess with him, and he doesn't like stuff that's not straight on his desk. People-oriented people will, when they make the list will be on uniform sizes of paper in some sort of order. You could probably take that paper out and file it, or scan it and file it, and probably do something with that piece of paper. And it probably only has just what he's doing at the conference on that piece of paper. People-oriented people make lists, but they write on every available thing that they can find to write on. Receipts, dry cleaner slips, sugar packets. Oh, they would find lots of stuff that they could write on that. They will write on every available piece of paper. They make lists because they know they forget. I know I'm going to forget this, so I'm going to write it down. And so they grab anything they can and make a note of it, even if it's up the arm. My son found out he could write on this side of his arm and it didn't sweat off as quick. So he can make notes to himself there. But people-oriented people are so engaged in the people parts of the conversation, the people parts of the relationship, that they sometimes know that they forget, and they might be late or they might forget to do something because they got caught up in the people conversation part of it. Because to them, the relationships are the most important. And that's what the right side of the brain does. It is the part that allows us to create and maintain relationships. And we create them. It's the right side of the brain that remembers things about people. They remember what their birthdays are, what they like to have for their birthday cake, and their favorite other foods, places to go. They know where they went for they know everybody's last vacation. They know the books that everybody reads. They seem to know a little bit about a lot of things. And it's kind of like they have all this trivia in their head that allows them to make a connection to people. So wherever someone has been, wherever someone has gone, there's always someone that they know or someplace they've been that's similar that they can make that connection to. That makes them very easy to be around. It makes them conversational. They enjoy social settings because they enjoy going, oh, I get to meet all these people and get to see everybody. And the task-oriented people are going, okay, we have to go to this meeting. I have to be friendly. Okay, I could be working. But the people-oriented people are going, oh, 40 new friends. Oh, this will be great. This is so fun. So they are engaged in those people dynamics, and it's incredible what they remember. As they will, if they haven't seen you for a year, they'll still remember what you were doing the last time they saw you. They just remember those kinds of things. Their brains are full of totally meaningless, useless information. But they are absolutely enjoyable to talk with, and they seem to fit in easily in a lot of different social settings, whether it's, dishing out soup at the homeless house, or whether they're with the CEOs of some multi-million-dollar corporation. They seem to get along easily with all kinds of people. With those little pieces of paper that they have that they write all their lists on, they stuff them in their pockets or in their purses. And then they come back to the desk and unload. They unload all those little pieces of paper, cocktail napkins, McDonald's napkins, sugar packets, and so we end up with confetti on the desk. But if you were to ask them for Frank's number, they can find it. They'll go, and they pull out this little piece of paper about this big that says Frank. And you're looking at it, and it says John with a phone number. And so you question them, I wanted Frank's number. And they say, this is Frank's number. And you're saying, well, it says John. And they go, it says Frank on the other side. That's to remind me to call John because Frank told me to call John, but that's Frank's number. And then they'll put it right back where it belongs Does they know about in the stack where it was? Now, there is no way to file anything in that pile. You'd have to put it on the copier, blow it up 3 or 4 times before you could even scan it to put it somewhere. So there's no way to file it. Now, if they can get a list down on paper because they know that it pleases you, because they know they forget, then they come in at the end of the day, and at the end of the day, they'll say, look, and they're going to have this list. Look what I did, and because you'll say, what'd you do today? And they'll go down the list. Now, the list is not in chronological order. Timeline, like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, what you were expecting them to do today. The list is in emotional order. It's whatever had the most emotional impact on them, whether it's a positive emotional impact or a negative one. So they might start out telling you something that happened at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they jump back to 9 o'clock, and then they go to 2, and then to 8, and now you've stopped them. Well, I thought you saw them first, and then you went to see so-and-so, and I thought your appointment was with so-and-so then, and then that one was after. And they're going, yeah. But see, they're not telling you in chronological order. They're telling you in emotional effect. But now you've stopped me from telling you about my day because you're correcting it. You're putting it in order for me, and you asked me how was my day and what did I do today. And if you're doing this to someone after they've come home, like this is your child or your spouse, they don't talk to you anymore. They don't tell you about their day anymore because you correct them. You put it in chronological order, and they just wanted to tell you about the day. But if she's my boss, and I'm telling her all these things, and I'm excited because I got everything done on my list, I got everything done, then I'm expecting, help me out here, thank you. I'm expecting an attaboy. Now she's sitting there going, there's nothing on the list any more than what you were supposed to do. It's like, okay, now I want you to see here, people-oriented people are externally motivated. They are motivated by the attaboys. Task people, what was it real hard for her to do? She did not want to give me an attaboy, especially for stuff she just plain paid me to do. It was just my job. I mean, it wasn't like I went over and above. But you know what? People-oriented people need affirmation externally. Task-oriented people don't need it. They have their own internal affirmation. They know they did a good job. Just ask them. But you got to see the dynamics of misunderstanding here, of one managing another, one supervising another, one parenting another. Ooh, that's where it gets really sticky, the parenting part. We've got the task-oriented employee who doesn't need affirmation, but what if they're being managed by a people-oriented manager or supervisor? That people-oriented supervisor is wanting to give them affirmation all the time. Let me see if I can do it. I'll let her put her water down. You did a good job, 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 good job. And she's going, get off me. It's like, you know, if I'm doing a good job, it's like, ooh, if I'm doing a good job, give me more money. Or give me at least something harder to do, you know. But don't just like, yeah, that's so sweet, you did such a good job. I don't care, give me money, you know. Now, okay, but can you see that the people-oriented supervisor is that affirmation, they are given it because they need it. And so you think everybody else needs it. But task people don't need it. They just need another task or another challenge or another job or money. But now what's going to happen the other way? The task-oriented person doesn't need affirmation. So what do they not give? Affirmation, unless they put it on their list. Learn to give affirmation. I mean, they can put it on the list and learn to do it, but they've got to become aware of it first. I mean, that's a skill you can learn, but it doesn't come naturally because you don't need it, so you don't see to give it. So if she's people-oriented and she's working for me and I never give her any affirmation, she's going to go home every day and go, I wonder what I can do to get that woman to just at least smile at me and say, good job. She doesn't ever do anything. Can't get anything out of her face. Well, the way I see it, if you're people-oriented, you're out of luck. You're just out of luck. If you try to give affirmation, it's going to get shoved back on you. If you want it, you're not going to get it. So we're going to have to devise some other things for people-oriented people to do, because you're going to need to learn to get your own, because unless a lot of task people put it on their list to learn to give affirmation, the people-oriented people aren't getting it. Where task-oriented people can be challenged to work harder, people-oriented people usually can't be challenged to work harder unless the relationship is there. So for the dad who tells his people-oriented little middle schooler who's trying to play football and who made 2 touchdowns, and he comes in and his dad says, if you'd have tried harder, you'd have made 3, that little boy won't play football anymore because he's just having fun. He didn't need a challenge. He wasn't there for the challenge. He was just there to have fun. But if that was a task-oriented child, that little task-oriented child will go out there and make the 3rd touchdown next time. But you've got to know which one that works on, because it doesn't work on everybody. But we have a tendency to do what we would respond to. And if you pay attention a little bit, it's not hard to see some of the people that you live and work with that I've just described already. If I put those charts together, you've got the circle then in the middle of your page. And I'm going to turn around because this is what the head's going to look like. This is the D, this is the I, this is the S, and this is the C. Okay? So it's just like you're looking down on the top of your head. And when we break that up, then the D is on the front part of the brain. It's on the task-oriented side, right? So this is our dominant, direct, determined, demanding, decisive, doer person. We see some of those personalities in politics right now. I can see Hillary Clinton in that role. I can see Donald Trump in that role. And somewhat, I can see Ted Cruz in that role. Bernie, I haven't quite figured out. I can't quite figure out which one he is. But for a lot of people that are public figures, I enjoy just sitting there watching, trying to figure out what kind of brain dominance that they're coming from. This D part is the part that's the entrepreneurial, don't box me in, don't give me limits, just give me an assignment and don't tell me how to do it, let me figure out how to do it, just tell me what the deadline is and what the budget is, and I'll work in that. But don't then start micromanaging me and telling me how to do it. If we go around the circle to the right, we're still on the fast-paced, high-risk decision-making part. But now we've moved over to the people-oriented part. And this is the one who is the natural-born salesperson. They can sell ice to Eskimos. This is the one who is influencing, inducing, interactive, impressive, interested in people. This is the very social person. They can talk you into or out of anything. And this is what my son Adam profiles on. And he is pretty much off the chart on that. And boy, it was fun learning this brain dominance and watching. If I had not known that's what he was when he was about 13, I had him do that profile on himself when he was about 13. Had I not known that, high school would have been even worse. But I had to actually change my expectations and my parenting style because I was going to parent him from my brain dominance, and he was not going to respond. So I could either help to grow him up the way he should go, or we could fight about the way I thought he should go. And he finally graduated. I told him, please don't quit school. I had to give up about him going to college. Forget going to college. He was not going to go. It was not in his makeup. So I had, and my goal then became, just don't quit. Just don't quit school. Life is not like school. When you get out of school, you'll be able to move and talk. But right now in school, you can't move and talk, and you think that's how life is going to be for you, but that won't be so. Just don't quit. So I'll show you a picture of him later. Going on around, we are now moving down to the reserved, slower paced, but we're still on the people-oriented side of the brain, and that's the S, and that would be our steady, stable, supportive, sensitive, sweet, and shy part of the brain. One of the differences between the I and the S, they're both people-oriented. The I does all the talking, the S does all the listening. So the I is the one at the water cooler on Monday morning with everybody standing around him, and the I is the one telling all the funny stories about what happened over the weekend, and the S's are all listening. The S's are the ones, the S's, those are the ones who are going to have the hardest time telling that VDP person that we talked about first. You're going to have the hardest time telling them to leave. The rest of us will be able to do what I suggested that we do and tell them to go home. But the S's are going to be the ones who will have the harder time. Because you have a tendency to have a high tolerance for sitting and listening. And you have big shoulders. People come and tell you really weird stuff that is TMI. But they tell you stuff. And what I find is the S's will go to their grave with that information. S's do not gossip. Don't tell those things to the I. Because once it goes in, it's fair game. It's fair game. It comes out. The C, if we go back around here to the C side, this is our, we're still on the reserved, slower paced, low risk side of the brain, but this is our cautious, calculating, competent, compliant, critical analyst. This is a very careful person, thinker, measure twice, cut once. I would think that Chris has to have a lot of this in his brain to crunch all those numbers. This is the numbers person. The charts, the graphs, the analyzing, those kinds of things, there is, that part of the brain is very much less tolerant of gray. It's black or white. They tend to like professions where it balances or it works, like a clockmaker. It either works or it doesn't work. The bridge is built. It works or it doesn't work. You know, precise kinds of sciences, disciplines where things work. The C is the one who will spend hours for the penny in the checkbook that they can't find, because they're not going to just do an adjusting entry. They're going to find where that was, because they know. No offense, managers, look at me. Those of you who are this, you know you didn't make the mistake. It has to be. And you're going to prove it right. Right? Because it's like, I know I did not make that mistake. I would not be off a penny. There's no way. So we've got the whole brain. Now, some of you are saying, well, I think I'm a little bit of all of them. Well, yeah, you are. You've got a whole brain. I don't see anybody here who looks like they're missing half of a head or anything. But you've got a whole brain, but you prefer to use one or two of those pieces more than others. And since this is not I'm not a shrink. Since this is not a psychological evaluation, it's just a communication assessment, and you do it on yourself, then this is you measuring you. And Adam, my son, measured all four. You can see the higher ones here at the top are the ones that he prefers to use. And he, at the time, didn't see much need to use either of the other two with the sliding scale down. That's as close to a graph as you're going to get from me. It's simpler. Let's take just a little more of a trip here. One of the things, let's go back before I say that. Look at the D and the S. They're opposites. They're opposites. Look at the I and the C. They're opposites. Your brain actually is not wired to go that way. Your brain only goes, those little whatever neuro things go around. They don't cross. So to go from this side of the brain to that side of the brain, you got to go around one way or the other. And you know what? Those opposites, the D and the S and the I and the C, as people, they attract each other. Opposites attract. 80% of you are married to your opposite. Or you were. But just have to say, which is why I say opposites attract and then they attack, because they seem to work together better than living together. And a lot of us know that we are working with our opposite. And we know that our opposite makes up the deficiencies that we don't have. They like to do what we don't like to do. Keep us out of jail and whatever. But you do that part, I do this part, and we work together as a good team. And what you're talking about is a whole brain being used there together. But it seems like when we get into more family or more intimate relationships or with kids, we have the ability to say, yes, I know that you're my opposite. Can you hear the but coming? But, and then we don't maybe say it, but we kind of act like it. You'd be better off if you were more like me. And so though the opposites attract, we then tend to try to recreate them into our image and make them be more like me, and then that's where the wars and the battles and the fights come from. And that's where a lot of the misunderstanding, and then what happens is you pull even further apart. And then it becomes personal, and then you all know all the stuff that happens. It just becomes nasty. But in reality, what attracted you becomes the thing now that you don't like, but it actually fills your blind spot. What's interesting about the circle is that, let me go back to it. If we put board members, now think about board members. Let's have one of each of them on a board. Are they going to disagree? Yeah. Which one's more right? Well, that's who thinks they're more right, but which one has the better perspective? No, all of them do. No, there's no better one. There's not one that you want to be. There's not one that should be. Think about this. If you're going to make a decision at a board meeting, or in the family, or wherever, in your staff or with your staff or department, would you not want input from all four? The D needs to give their input of what will move us forward. The I needs to use their input of what can we do in this decision to bring the people and rally the people around us. The S needs to know and can contribute of I can create the systems for this to work. And the C says, yeah, but nothing goes forward unless I critique it and make sure it's correct. It's not going to work if we don't make sure every I is dotted and every T is crossed and every connection is made. I don't think we can make a very good decision without all four. But now, who wins in this discussion? The D. The D will win in the discussion. We have now only made a decision that involves a quarter of the brain. And now we're leaving out the marketing piece, which is the I, and we're leaving out the systems piece, and we're leaving out the troubleshooting piece. And I think we need all four. And wouldn't it be just really cool if in a board meeting, instead of each board member doing a one-up on each other, well, this is my idea, we should go this way, this is my idea, we should go this way, this is my idea, we should go this way, instead of the board members doing a one-up on each other, wouldn't it be interesting for the chair to say, okay, I know you've got a different perspective, what's yours? And I know you've got a different perspective, can you tell us what you see in this? Would you just drop dead if a board member solicited the opinion of another board member? I think I'd faint. Because I think we spend more of our time defending our position and saying this is why I'm right, instead of saying, what's your position, what's your position, what's your position? Can we put all that on a table, stand back and look at it and say, is there something we can do for the good of whatever we're trying to do that might need all four of these? Sometimes you do have to take the D piece and go with it, or the I piece and go with it. But how can you make that decision until you've had all four pieces on the table? So I think you still need all four pieces on the table. I think probably with the group that's here, you would not have gotten where you are had you not had the ability to do that. I don't think you'd be where you are and be at this meeting had you not reached that ability to solicit the opinion and the advice and the information of other people. But I think we all know that there are people who haven't reached that level of maturity yet. That there are others who will just fight and fight and fight, that their way is the only way. Let's take a look. Opposites attract. This is Adam, my Adam, and his wife Chastity. And he is now a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, and he is still in Beaufort, South Carolina. He has actually been stationed there for the whole 12 years that he's been in. He's gone back and forth between Parris Island and the Marine Corps Air Station. But I think they're getting ready to make their first move late in the summer, and they're going to go to Vermont. It's like, Vermont? Okay, well, okay. Seems kind of strange, but okay. This is my grandson, Mr. Rhett. Haven't figured out what he is yet. I think he's probably back-brained at least. And I do have assessments for children who don't read. It's like a little coloring book, and you read it to them and pick out some little cartoon characters, and it's really neat. So you can kind of assess your grandchildren. Let's take just a little bit of a look here at the D. First, are you recognizing anybody that you know? Sure. Do you recognize some family members, some friends, colleagues, coworkers? Yeah? Can you be more enthusiastic? So are you recognizing people that you know? Do you see yourself? Do you see yourself? Or do you see the person sitting next to you if you know them? I think it's a little harder to see yourself. The goal, the ultimate goal would be to be whichever one of those you need to be at the moment. Mm-hmm. At the moment. That doesn't make you a hypocrite. It doesn't make you manipulative. It just means that you've learned to use all the tools in your toolbox in order to get that communication to go smoothly, to go well. The D, I've got some more D words here, and I've got some percentages for you. These are the only numbers I'm going to have for you. It is said that with all the studies and things that are done in this particular group, this particular kind of assessment, that there are probably only 10% Ds in a general population. And I look at that number and I go, oh, thank you, Lord. These are scary people. But you know what? If we didn't have Ds, we would have no society that moves forward. Ds are the entrepreneurial, free-thinking, free-spirited, think outside the box. We have air conditioning, we have cars with wheels and gasoline motors, and iPads and all those kinds of things because somebody told a D it can't be done. And the D said, watch me. And so the D did it. These are the ones that move us forward. And in the meantime, how many of you think you might be Ds? Oh, there's pointing back here. Okay, a couple of you might be Ds. That might be just a little bit more than 10%, which is probably going to be true of this group. Okay, those of you who think they might be Ds, you're pointing at her? Okay, look at me. That means 90% of the people you deal with are not like you. Look at 90%. Are not like you. You scare them. You go fast. You go fast. You're high risk. My D friends always say they feel like they're a fish swimming upstream, that they're always fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting because everybody else is just holding them down. They're all going the other way. Well, that's because you're 10% of a population. Everybody else is going, they might be going the same way, they're just going a whole lot slower than you are. If you want to work with people, then Ds, you need to recognize that you're going to have to develop some of those other skills in order to bring them along. Because you're rare, you're 10% of a population. I do have a caution on each of these, defiant. And this happens, you can start to see the defiance when they're about 10 days old. Because when you bring this one home from the hospital, you know you've got one. And in about 10 days, in about a month, they have reared up on that little crib and they've grabbed those bars and they're going to say, I'm in charge. And you're going to say, I don't know what to do with this child. I hope that this is not the first child, because then you won't have any more. But if it's the second or third one, that's about when you're in your 30s or 40s, maybe by then, depending on, I don't know, people have babies later now, 30s. And then you're thinking, oh my gosh, what did I just get? I'm having a midlife crisis now. I don't know what to do with this one because it's not like the first two. And so now you're doubting yourself and everything else is happening in your world. The way you overcome that defiance, and back here you had said difficult people don't like to be told no. This one you can't say no to. I mean, you have to say no to, but you can't say no to. You offer them choices. Well, you can do this and park here, or you can pay the $100 fine. Say when? Well, maybe. When you say no, here's what happens inside of them. They like a challenge. When you say no, you draw a line in the sand. They have no choice. They have no choice. I mean, they can't help themselves. They can't help themselves. They have to. And so what you want to try to do is not draw the line in the sand, but you offer them choices. Well, you can either, if they're 17 years old, you can say you can either come in at 10 o'clock at night or you can not drive for the next 2 months. Instead of yelling and screaming and ranting and raving and threatening all this stuff, it's just this or this. And so for the homeowner or the one who doesn't want to abide by your rules and regulations and whatnot, you can do this or you can do this. Here in Florida now, we can fine $100 for any violation. We're going to slap those fines on them. So you can do this or you can do this. Try to give them a choice and let them make the decision of what they want to do, and then you stick to your end of the bargain. The D's do bring a lot of strengths to the team, to the table, and you can see they're strong-willed, they're determined, they're independent, optimistic, practical, productive, they're decisive, they're a leader, they're very confident. They may be wrong, but they're never in doubt. You know, they are sure that this is the right way to go. Now, you see if you can figure out what I'm trying to say here. Each of the parts of your brain brings a very positive tool that you can use. You can pick up those tools, kind of like having a toolbox and use them. But there's a good, bad, ugly. Good, bad, ugly. Good, bad, ugly. Good, bad, ugly. You can take a strength and push it too far, and it becomes a limitation, it becomes a weakness, and it will destroy the team or the group or the family. So you can't say, well, I'm dominant, and then be more dominant and still be okay. Dominant goes to, well, I have here, I don't know if I've got it, but it would go to domineering. Look on the right side of the chart. All those on the left go, and then they go across. Instead of having the good qualities there, you become reckless, rude, impatient, pushy, dictatorial, conceited, offensive, arrogant, abrasive, and ruthless. That will undo a team. D's, when somebody starts calling you that, or when you recognize that in yourself, go to your room. Go to your room, give yourself a timeout. Not sure that we'll have time today to talk about your de-stressing activities, but each part of the brain prefers a different type of de-stressing activity. And when you get to the right side of the screen up here, you need your de-stressing activity. You've pushed yourself too far. In responding to a D, one of the things I already told you was try to give them a choice, but also be firm. Now, who's going to have, remember your circle in the brain and the opposite? Who's going to have the hardest time being firm? The S. The S is going to have the hardest time being firm. The thing about the D is when you tell them something, they're going to challenge you on it. And the S has a tendency to think they should change their position. The D actually is messing with you. The D is just seeing if you really will believe what you just said and if you'll stick to it. And S's, it's going to be the hardest for you to stick to whatever you just said. But you need to stick to what you said, and the fact that they challenged you is probably a good thing. They're kind of playing with you a little bit. So that might mean that they're sort of willing to listen to you, but don't back down. What a D does not want is to ask you a question and you turn around and say, what do you think? That isn't what the D asked. The D said, what do you think? They want to know what you think, so tell them what you think. But the tendency, especially for the S, is to say, what do you think? When all else fails, walk away. When all else fails, walk away. Do you have some communities that you had to fire them? Yeah, I mean, you just have to walk away. There's some communities, it's not worth the business, it's not worth the work, you just need to walk away. And that would be true collectively of a board or of an individual. That's what a D would do. Look at that stupid goat going up the wrong side. The I, the influencer, this is our natural-born people person. They can talk you into or out of anything. There is hardly any little piece of trivia that they don't know, that they can't talk about. And if they don't know what you're talking about, they make it up. And you don't know. That's the thing. You don't know that they're making it up because it sounds like they know what they're doing, what they're talking about. They make up about 30% of a population. Do I have any interactive people here? I think Gus is one of these over here. He sounded real interactive at breakfast today. Yeah. Yeah, do y'all know him? Would you say that? Yeah, he sounded real. I mean, by the time we finished breakfast, he'd given us a tour of the United States, every place he'd been. I mean, we did. You gave us a tour. I thought you were from California, but no, you're from Pennsylvania. No, who knew? I mean, you know, it sounded like he was from wherever. This is 30% of a population. But see, I want you to look at the other number. That means 70% are not like you. That means 70% don't have nearly as much fun as you do. Because you're going to make sure that you have fun no matter where you go, and that you're going to meet people and you're going to do something interesting and exciting. 70% of the rest don't do that. So just remember, that's why people seem boring to you. But the caution here for the I is illogical. Just because you have checks left in your checkbook does not mean you have money. My son's a little more updated version of that, when he turned 16, he had a job, he ended up with a truck, and so he's bringing home his first paycheck. Now, I knew he was the I, and I knew the illogical, because I'd already heard some of the stories that were like, wow, I don't know where that came from, but that was good. And so I decided that when we opened up a checking account for him, that it would not be at my bank. I did not want to be related or associated with him. And in Leesburg, about an hour away from here, small town, everybody knows everybody, I didn't want the bankers at my bank knowing he was related to me. So we opened up a bank account at another bank, and I thought I would let them deal with his banking habits. So he gets his first bank statement, and back when they're coming in paper and stuff. And so I get the bank statement and my pens and markers, and I say, come on, honey, I'm going to show you how to balance your checkbook. And he said, and now he knows why his bank is different than mine. He knows why we're not at the same bank. So I have my little papers and pens, and he says, I found out I don't need to balance my checkbook. And I had finally learned not to be mad at him about things like that. So my standard response was, do tell. Because I know he had a good story in there somewhere. And he said, well, at my bank, because he knew that we weren't at the same bank, at my bank, when I make a deposit, my deposit slip says how much money I have. Now, I'll let that sink in on some of you, because some of you know that that's not how much money you have. The rest of you are in that 30% category who thinks that's real logical. I decided, you know what? I wasn't going to even explain it to him. I wasn't going to even try. I was just going to let him and the bank work it out. And he would figure it out later that that might not really be how much money he had, because it depends on how many other checks he had written. So that just said they can just work that out. They don't need me. Illogical. What?
I said this is the bread and butter of the banking industry.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, since you said that, I'm going to chase a rabbit. I don't have time, but I'm going to chase a rabbit here. The other thing that he did, he was, for his first overseas deployment, he was not married, and I was still getting his bank statements at the house. How many mothers would have opened them? Okay, all right, okay. Okay, so I'm opening up because I wanted to see what he's spending his money on in Japan or Korea or wherever he was. I want to see what he's spending his money on. So I'm opening them up, and I'm seeing overdraft charge, overdraft charge, overdraft charge. He had $75 of overdraft charges. And I'm looking at that, and I'm going, golly, man, he just blew through a bunch of money with overdraft charges. So, a precious phone call. I get a call, he calls, and okay, mothers, how many would have said something about it? Yeah. It's like I can't help myself. Hey, honey, and, we're talking, and do you realize that you've got $25, $75 worth of overdraft charges on your checking account? He goes, yeah, so? Because if it were me, I'd have been horrified. I think I've had one overdraft charge in my whole life, and I would have just been horrified. I got my first one not too long ago. He said, so, and I did, do tell. And he said, well, I don't see what difference it is in you paying Jennifer to keep your books and me paying the bank to keep mine. I don't even have anything to say after that. I mean, it's just like, it made total sense to him. And I guess what I finally realized, that even though this says illogical, he has a logic. It is not what I think most people have. 70% don't have, but he has a logic. So, no interest. Whoop, that's the wrong one. Look at the characteristics: friendly, compassionate, carefree, talkative, outgoing, enthusiastic, warm, personable, fun. This is the one that can talk you into buying anything. But if they don't have a little bit of that D, other part of the brain, they can't close the sale. So they need the I. The I, it can go out there and market like crazy, but without a little bit of that D in that profile, they're not going to close. And I think that's the part that they need as the closer. Again, you can take those strengths and push them too far, and they become a liability. You can take all that fun, loving, carefree, optimistic, personable personality, and it becomes unrealistic, manipulative, emotional, gossipy, impulsive, unfocused, excitable, directionless, daydreamer, and purposeless. If you take that collection, it looks like ADHD. It's not. It's a stressed I. It is an I that's out of control. And we went through round and round and round with that in grade school, because he was not ADHD. He was bored. This person works and learns, so as a child or as an adult, works or learns by moving and talking. Moving and talking. And what can you not do in school? Move or talk. And that's why I told him, I said, just wait, don't quit, get out of high school, because then you can move and talk. And he does, a lot. 3.5 years, part of his gig was a drill instructor, so he did a lot of moving and talking. Speak friendly. They are very sensitive to facial expressions. If you frown at an I when you're talking to them, and who's the one most likely to frown? Nope. C, because C's are thinking, and they frown when they think, but they're so happy, but they don't tell their face. And so when an I asks a question of a C does this. Because it's like, oh, question, this is wonderful. But they have to frown to access their data. But the I just saw that, and you shut them down. So if you are a C and you are talking with an I and they ask you a question, you have to go, well, let me think. Because your tendency is to go inside and find the answer. And that just shuts them down, because now they're looking at you going, what did I say wrong? What did I do? Nothing. You asked me a question. I was excited. Be friendly, be positive, let them talk, but don't forget to get the conversation back on track of where it needs to be, because they'll take you in a real fun place. And you'll have lots of fun wherever they take you. That's kind of like my eyes. They kind of look like they're just kind of all hopping around, having a good time. The S's, these are steady, stable, supportive, sensitive, sweet, and shy. Look at the, I'm sorry, did I say that wrong? Shy. Hold on here. Sucker. The I, or the S, is the sweetest person on earth. And look at the percentage of the population, 35%. When you're talking about doing document amendments, I bet your community has 35% S's in it. You need to be sure that you have rolled out a 6-month marketing campaign on those document amendments, because that S isn't going to budge unless you give them plenty of time to think about why this is good for everybody. And it's amazing to me how many times boards just want to do these amendments, and I say to them, and they'll call and complain, say, I didn't get a quorum, didn't get this or that or the other, and I'll say, well, what was your marketing strategy? What do you mean marketing? Well, you know marketing. What was your marketing strategy? What was your rollout plan? Oh, you just expect owners to show up? Yeah, right. How'd that work for you? Did you get a quorum? Nope. Well, marketing. You're going to have to market to these, because you're going to have to show them the benefit of the change, because they don't like change. If you work with one of these and you're asking them to change some routine in the office, give them 3 years' notice. You're going to change some of that IT and software and all that stuff, 3 years' notice on that, because they're going to have to work out how that works in their head. Sucker, because they're the sweetest person on earth. It never occurs to them that people would be mean on purpose. It never occurs to them people would be mean on purpose. And so they get suckered out of their time, their money, and their affections. And they have all of the kids' junk in the attic because they're sentimental and can't get rid of it all and can't tell their kids, it's yours, take it. So they keep everybody's stuff because they're sweet and they can't say no. Basic need, I didn't give you the basic need on the I is affirmation. And so we're going to do the affirmation and give her a microphone and a plaque and a moment to speak, and she'll be real happy. The S would die if you did that. So what the S needs is this. She'll work for 20 more years for that. The S just needs to know that they were helpful to you, that they were part of the team. They just need to know that you were pleased, but they don't want a big public display of anything that would embarrass them to death. They bring a lot of value, a lot of strengths to the team. This is the one with the calming effect of the team. They're dependable, easygoing, trustworthy, efficient, practical, conservative, diplomatic, humorous. We all saw, and I think he's gone, Chris had a lot of dry humor, but he cracked us up, but it was funny. And there could be some of that kind of dry humor. This is not a slapstick, tell a joke, tell a big story at a party kind of person. It's just these little one-liners that just kind of zing out of their mouth, and it's like, oh, that was funny. But it's unexpected, and they have no affect that warned you that it was coming. But as sweet as they are, they have a good, bad, ugly also. And if you push them too far, if they haven't said no soon enough and they get stressed, because it's taken them 5 years to tell one person, this person, no, They lack initiative, they're dependent, used by others, indecisive, uncommunicative, inflexible, resistant to change, easily manipulated, slow, and resentful. And you won't know they're mad about it until 5 years later. And then they erupt, and you wonder where all that came from. But they've been stuffing it down, stuffing it down, stuffing it down for years, and it just erupts. They need their de-stressing activity a little sooner than that. S's literally shut down when they hear loud voices. A loud voice with a strong northern accent, and that seems to make it even louder. Just any kind of loud voices, even though people aren't arguing, actually shuts their front brain down and they can't think. And they will say to me, yeah, I thought of something to say 3 days later when they finally got back to the front brain part. But the loud voices shut them down, and they go into a fight or flight thing, but because we're adults, they don't literally run and they don't literally hit you in this room. But it does shut them down. It kind of sends them back to the reptilian part of their brain, and because society tells us not to run or hit people, then they just go blank. And this is the one that is probably going to have a lot of good information for you after the meeting is over. Because if you introduce things that they weren't up to speed on and they're asking for their opinion, blank. But then they'll come by your office a day or two later, kind of lean against the door and go, I've been thinking about that, and I think whatever they'll tell you there. They have a really good idea. So note to self, if there's a way to wait a day or two before that final decision, see if you can get your S's to come back around to the office and give you their input, some of their thoughts. Because it'll come to them a day or two later if it's been something either new that they're not expected, or if there was loud discourse in that meeting. That is going to have shut them down. So speak to them kindly, softly. I doubt that you're going to have to walk away from the S, but maybe they might. Who was it, Kevin back there? Who was it? Somebody liked this. No. C's. This is our left back brain. This is our cautious, calculating, competent, compliant, critical thinker, analyst person. It has to balance for them. It's got to balance. This is the one, this is the board member or the owner who does know the documents. They do know the governing documents. They've got tabs all over them. They can show you where everything is. They know the statutes. And they cannot tolerate, they go literally berserk with a double standard. So if a board enforces it here but doesn't enforce it here, drives them totally nuts, and they will be your worst enemy. Because the double standard they just can't. If it's a rule, it's a rule. And if it's a rule and you're using something else, you better tell them what the other one is, so that they can get it in their head that this rule overrides this rule. But they will know the documents. They will be the ones who can read the financials, even though your treasurer probably can't. Cold, though, is the caution. And it's the caution because of their face. They have no affect. In fact, what they have, it's beyond none, it's frowning. It's almost like everything they know is right here. And I'm still old tech, I'm trying to get up to speed, but I still have a file cabinet in here. And I think that C's have file cabinets. And when you ask them a question, they go digging in their file cabinet. And to access it, they have to frown, which makes them look unhappy. And to the person who asked the question, it makes that question look inappropriate. Like somehow you didn't like it. It was wrong. You shouldn't have asked that. And so now you've put the other person off because they don't know what they've just said that's wrong. Had one manager who recognized that she did this because she said, when people would come into her office and she'd look up at them, people would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, are you mad?" Well, I mean, I'm going to start backing out. I didn't mean to interrupt. And she finally realized there was some look on her face that was caused, because she wasn't mad. She was glad somebody stopped in and needed whatever. But she had been concentrating and frowning. So what she taught herself to do was she'd be working and she'd hear somebody come in and she'd go, but she realized it was something about her face was causing a reaction. And that's what the C's do. And when I'm coaching them, when they're having some difficulty in communicating, when I'm coaching them, I'm literally telling them to do some exercises in the bathroom in front of the mirror. Shut the door, lock it, don't let anybody in, and then just practice with your face. And so I give them some things to do with their eyebrows and their cheekbones and stuff like that to feel what your face looks like and to know what position it's in, so that when you have particular people that you want to connect with, you want to encourage, and they're an I, because that would be the opposite, then you want to encourage them to continue to talk with you. And you can probably enhance that a little bit just by monitoring your face, because you tend to frown. And I know you're not unhappy. It's just that you're thinking real hard and you're digging in there in that file cabinet. 25% in a population. Quality answers is the way you make them happy. Do not say to the C, "Don't worry about it." Do not say to the C, "We'll take care of it." You'd better give them bullet points and a timeline, because they're not going to be happy. Quality answer of "don't worry about it," they're thinking, well, yeah, who's worrying about it then? Somebody's got to worry about it, so I'll do it. And then I'll be on your back and in your office, making sure you're worrying about it. So give them quality answers. Gifted, analytical, sensitive, perfectionistic, aesthetic. Aesthetic in that everything has to be even and balanced. It's kind of a visual double, can't tolerate the double standard. So if there's a bracelet here, there's a bracelet here. They're not going to have hair cut up one side and down the other. They got a plant on their desk here, they got a plant there. Things are going to be balanced, or something here. The chair's here, the chair's here, the sofa's here. They're going to be balanced. Idealistic, loyal, self-sacrificing, and thorough. If you want somebody to do a really thorough job, they will do a really thorough job, but you better tell them when the deadline is. Again, as valuable as they are, you can take a strength and push it too far, and they become compulsive, critical, and unsociable, prying, easily offended, fearful, inflexible, doubtful, worrisome, and picky. C's, when you find yourself in that category, go to your room. Go to your room, straighten yourself out, do your de-stressing activities, we're not going to have time to get to, and come back and join the team when you're back to your good, normal self. How to respond to a C? Well, I already gave you one thing. Don't tell them, don't worry about it. Give them quality answers. Give them specifics. Be fact-based. They are not interested in what everybody else thinks. They want to see it on paper. To them, paper rules everything. If it's on paper, then it's gospel. You can't just say, well, I think this or so-and-so thinks that. And you can't be pulling in names of important people or famous people. They could care less. Show it to me on paper. So show them paper. And expect a lot of questions, because whatever answer you give them, there's going to be who, what, when, where, why, how questions that come back with it. And when all else fails, again, for all of these, if you can't communicate, then walk away. That's an intriguing picture. Okay, I'm going to end here so that we can have our lunch at the right time. But tell me, I have gift cards here for Starbucks, I believe. Yes, gift cards. Tell me something that you just learned about a D. Yes, first.
It's my wife.
It's your wife. Oh, you need Starbucks then. And what are you?
I'm an I, and I actually texted her what you were talking about.
Okay, all right, cool. Tell me something about an I. Tell me something about an I. Got one? Yes?
They're good with marketing.
Good with marketing, yes, yes. Tell me something about an S. Be patient. They are patient, and be patient with them. And C. Tell me something about a C. Put it on paper. Put it on paper. Well, you all have been wonderful. I hope that you have learned some things about the people that you live and work with. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you.